Greetings all, F-Man here. Welcome back to another steam engine video of this Wilesco T115, T115. We'll say it both ways interchangeably, I'm sure. However, it's not new to me to have a model steam engine, but what is new to me is the fact that this one is a turbine. If you can read German to any extent, you'll see Dampfturbine, which means steam turbine, mit Dynamo. Or however they would say Dynamo. I have no idea how they would say dynamo in German. However, this is a steam turbine engine, and it is attached to a dynamo, a little DC generator that can be driven off of said turbine. And I have not taken it out of the box yet. This is the box, if you're at all interested. Yeah, some pictures on the side of the box that seem to differ somewhat from what the product actually is. It was probably a pre-production sample that they photographed for the box, but you can see all of this stuff. What do we have here? We have got steam turbine in English, French, I believe that is Danish, Dutch, and then Spanish. Cool. So we've got a multilingual steam engine affair going on here, but when we open up the box, we will see some things inside. Such as a QR code to the manual and product video. And then, yes, here's what we've got. We have our bag of parts, of course, with a chimney that I think is actually going to be non-functional on this. We've got a pressure gauge with washers that we need to fit. We've got our whistle. We have our fill funnel. And let's see, we got a bag of assorted washers for adjustments. And there should be a safety valve in there as well that I can't quite see, but safety valve will be in there. No, wait, no. The safety valve is fitted to the top of the boiler. This is a brass boiler. It's not nickel plated or anything. It's just the brass finished nicely. And then we have got ourselves the turbine rotor section itself. We've got a shaft coming off of the turbine, it appears, that goes into this geared pulley, which is then linked via that spring belt, trademark of Wilesco, to the dynamo, this little generator, which will then send its power to these terminals here, I think. But yes, the boiler is apparently the same boiler as you get on a D20 or D22. However, it doesn't seem to have the drain cock there. However, it looks like the boiler and boiler casement are the same as the D20 and D22. And then, of course, the engine side is fundamentally different. And that's really what we are most interested in. So let's get this thing out of the box. With it out of the box, what do we have? Obviously, we have got our boiler. It just has the safety valve fitted at the moment. The whistle will go here. The pressure gauge, which will be a one-time fitment, hopefully, will go in the aftmost hole. And then obviously we've got our end cap, our watch glasses in there, and that makes perfect sense. Under here is the firebox. I've removed the burner tray. But everything is just very nice and clean in there, as you would expect for something that's never been fired. Here is the burner tray itself. That is also perfect. It will never quite be this perfect again. And then we've got the engine side. Obviously, this is the turbine itself. We have got a shaft here on the turbine. So this is coming out of the hub, it would appear. And then this, the much smaller gear is the turbine gear that is then interfacing, it's meshing with the pulley gear. Looks like we've got two pulleys. That's cool. So it's also my first model steam engine that, technically speaking, has a geared transmission. That's interesting. This is the dynamo. So the larger pulley going to the smaller shaft there. That's interesting. If we remove the drive belt and just give the turbine a spin. How are the bearings on this thing? They already feel good. Yeah. Yes. The bearings are quite nice. Yeah. The housing is, let's see, the red section is die cast. The top section here appears to be a plastic, maybe even 3D printed. It's got the characteristic striations in it. That could be 3D printing. This is a very new manufacture from Wilesco, therefore. I think this came out in 2022. The stand that's holding the turbine is metal. The turbine blades themselves are probably metal. Let's see, can we see? Yeah, we can even see. Yeah, you can see the turbine a bit. That's probably where a lot of exhaust is going to come. The exhaust is going to come out from the top hole and the bottom hole here. And then, of course, we have got our standard condensed water catch here. I don't think it's necessary to lubricate the turbine, though, which will mean that this condensed water that we'll be capturing should be pretty clean. We'll see how that actually transpires, but that'll be interesting. But, yes, you can see the turbine blades in there to an extent. And of course, this thing is going to sound much different from a piston engine because there's no reciprocation. Everything is just going to be linear, and it's going to spin a whole lot faster than a piston engine will as well. So that's going to be quite interesting when we fire this thing up somewhat soon. Okay, so the only bit of actual installation work we need to do on this is to fit our standard Wilesco pressure gauge. Yep, it's the same type that I've got on the D20 and D22. It comes in this wonderful little heat-sealed pack. Yep. We'll open this up and we will get at the pressure gauge inside. It looks like it is 100% identical to the others. Right. Okay, so we have got the gauge. Pin is 0. There we go. Pin is 0, and then we go up with atmosphere or bar on the outside ring, and then we have got PSI, pounds per square inch, on the inside ring. Red line is at 1.5, as is standard on these things. And the safety valve will lift at about 1.5, 1.6. We have also got these 3 paper cardboard spacers. We have 2 thicker ones and 1 thinner one. And the idea is when we fit this to the boiler, we want this facing aft, because this is the side that I'm going to operate the engine from. So we're going to want it roughly in this orientation. So we will see what we've got. I think on my D22 and D20, I just used one of the larger spacers. So assuming that the threads are the same, which they probably are, that's what I'm going to do here. So we're going to start with one of those larger spacers. We're going to see what it does. Might have to adjust it, but we can adjust it, thankfully. Going to put on just a little bit of steam oil onto the pressure gauge threads. And hopefully this is a one-time fitment. So we're gonna just put that in there and start turning. It's sufficient for it to be hand tightened. Although they do give you a little nut here for a wrench if you want. All right, so that spacer is not good. Can add the thinner one if we want, because it's just about a quarter turn, maybe a third of a turn too much. Oh, I think we found it. I think we have just about found it. Let's see. Yep, that's that then. So it's larger, and then the thinnest one that they give. I'll get on top and eyeball. How are we with our lineup? Pretty much perfect. Definitely good enough for government work, so that's fine. So the pressure gauge is installed, and we hopefully will never have to take it off. Safety valve on top. This is fine. We'll check that the safety valve is actually working, and it is. A little gritty. We'll lubricate that as we should anyway. Now we have our wrench and our whistle. whistle and the wrench are absolutely identical to the tools that you get with the D20 and D22. Some D455s have this same whistle as well, but I've had a different one on my D455. Same thing with the whistle. They give you assorted spacers. Again, the same paper spacers to see what sort of fitment you're actually going to require. So I will do the same thing here. Drop a steam oil. And the whistle is going to go in this forwardmost hole, just like on a D20. All right, so it wants to sit roughly here, which is where I want it to be. The direct metal-on-metal contact on top of the soldered joint may not be the best idea. We'll put the thinnest available spacer on top. I'll try that again. Lock it down. I mean, it can sit here. It's going to be directly in the fire exhaust there, which, not ideal. You can say suboptimal. Probably can't see all that much that I'm doing. Yeah. Raise you a little. So I guess I will go for one more of the thin spacers. To see what we can do. And again, these are just cardboard spacers. If you really needed to, you could make these. Looks like each one of these gets you about half a turn at full tightness. The one thing you really don't want is for this handle right here to be facing toward the chimney when it's tight, because then the chimney's not going to fit. Yeah, it'll fit this way, it'll fit the other way. I mean, it's really just down to personal preference. I would prefer it facing outboard toward the left side more than I would facing inboard toward the engine side. So we're going to use 3 of the thin spacers on the whistle, which appear to my eye to be roughly equivalent to the singular thicker spacer. And there we more or less go. That is going to work. Where are our cuts? All right. How does that look? Okay, that's fine. That's more or less where I want it. You got to deal with the fire exhaust, but again, I don't tend to use the whistles much on these things. The whistle is most useful when the fire has gone out anyway, so you can get pressure out of the boiler quicker. So, okay, that's cool. We're going to, now, of course, as we've just put the whistle on, we're going to remove it, because we're going to use that hole, or the safety valve hole, either way, we're going to use that to fill the boiler with our distilled water. Because of course you got to do that. You won't get very far without any water in the steam engine. Note our spacers have stayed on top of the boiler there, that's okay, as long as we don't lose them. And we will go from here. You want to fill the boiler when you've got a vent hole, otherwise it will just start building pressure and the water won't go in anymore. So that's no good. So we'll start filling the boiler presently. There's no drain valve to close, so that's already taken care of. Our throttle is completely open on the engine side, I think, yeah. Turn that clockwise to close, turn that counterclockwise to open. We'll keep it open at the moment. And we'll start filling this thing. And because I've not done a great job of showing you the left side of the engine so far, this is the bottom of the boiler casing. There is no hatch here, no hole here for the condensed water catch as you would see on a D20 or D22. because there is no exhaust going into what is effectively the smoke box, if you will. So the chimney, unfortunately, is a complete dummy. We'll fit it anyway just for aesthetics, but the chimney is entirely non-functional because all the exhaust is going to be coming out of this side of the turbine. So yes, that's what we've got. Got a pressure gauge fitted, and we're just about ready to start filling the boiler. Boiler filling is an enthralling process, I'm well aware, but the funnel goes in. This is exactly the same funnel you get with basically every Wilesco engine ever. Long neck so it reaches down into the boiler a bit so you minimize splashback, I suppose, but whatever. And you just take your distilled water and you start to pour it in. I've taken the liberty of preheating this a bit in the microwave, which also means it's a little hot to handle at the moment, but whatever. If you notice a slightly shaky hand on my part, I've had 2 cups of coffee already this morning. But just like any other boiler, you want to have at very least about halfway up the watch glass before you put fire in that firebox. I'm going to fill it a little bit beyond that. I can now see water on the watch glass. I think it's just splashing. I would not call it a meniscus, as it were. But now I would. Because this boiler appears to be exactly the same minus the drain valve as you get on a D20 or D22, I would expect, I think it's probably the same as a D18 as well, therefore, I would expect the overall capacity to be about 500 milliliters. So about a quarter of, or 2/3 of the way up is going to be in the mid 300s. That's about where we are now. You probably can't see this on camera, maybe a little bit. Just about here, this level is where the meniscus is. So I'm satisfied with that. And we'll finish the rest of our preparations presently. All right, so finishing our setup here. Got our whistle, which we will put into that forwardmost hole, just as you would on a D20, D22. My spacers came out of alignment a little bit. That's good. Do not crank on this handle to tighten that down the rest of the way. You will be filled with instant regret, although I could fit any whistle from any of my other Wilesco engines, should that really be necessary, but it'd be annoying. Let's crank that down, nice and tight, done. Right, last thing that you gotta do, safety valve. Notice I said last thing that you gotta do rather than the last thing that you should do. Safety valve, we're going to lubricate it. And by lubricate, I mean we are going to drop a little bit of oil on the rod, that central rod, which you gotta depress the bottom of the safety valve to get to. So there we go. And then a little bit of oil on the threads. Just like we did with the other hardware. And that goes into the central hole right there. That is not what she said. There we go. Nice. That's bold of me to make a "that's what she said" joke on a model steam engine video, because trust me, she ain't said nothing to me in a very long time. Anyway, last bit is to get some fuel into this tray. It will hold 6 of these nominal SBIT tablets. These are hexamethylentramine, or whatever that tongue twister is. These, unfortunately for my British friends, ironic as hell considering you people invented this technology, these are illegal now in the UK because they've got those hexamine derivatives. I think you need a firearms license in the UK to possess this. And getting a firearms license in the UK is, well, impossible. So, our hexamine SBIT tablets. You know it's hexamine when they smell like dead fish, but we are just going to put 3 into our tray because I think if we put in our usual 6 on an initial startup, we may go a little bit faster than I would like on the first firing of a brand new engine. So we're just going to have 3. There they are. And that's going to slide into our burner tray like so, which is awfully sticky because it's brand new. All right, little bits of steam oil just on that leading ramps. 100% improvement. Okay, cool. Little hacks that you learn along the way. Last thing that we'll do, just because it's here, it has no purpose whatsoever. It does not exhaust the steam. We will put our chimney in place. There we go. And it's just going to sit there. It doesn't sit on there at all tightly. It doesn't snug and it doesn't screw. It's just those flanges that I showed you. But it shouldn't come off because I anticipate there to be extremely little vibration from this engine because it's a turbine. Nothing is reciprocating. But the chimney is fitted and it's just what it is. Okay, so this is not quite the view that I have of everything, but you'll be able to see the pressure gauge roughly right there. It's cool. You have to tighten that up more, but we'll see. Things might expand and be good. Burner tray has our SPIT tablets in it. I have the drive belt disengaged, completely off right now. Whistles in place, safety valves in place. There are no drain valves to think about. Our throttle is open at the moment. We'll probably end up closing that. So we're ready for a light off. Fans of the Battleship New Jersey probably remember a Christmas or so ago when they read the poem "'Twas the Night Before Light Off." Yes, a little bit less complicated for our purposes here. So we're lit. We're now prisoners to the pressure gauge. So far, so good. Okay, so I'm going to close our regulator, throttle, steam shut-off valve, whatever you want to call it. Just going to let some pressure start to build in the boiler. Probably won't take very long, considering we have preheated the water, but we'll see how this transpires. There are vanes in the firebox on the bottom side of the boiler that will increase the heating surface area a bit. I can see those. I thought that maybe that was just a little bit of a marketing gimmick from Wilesco, but no, I can see visually there are vanes inside there. Try to get a better picture of those later. That will increase the surface area and just heat things by conduction a bit more. So that's actually somewhat interesting. That's a difference with the D20 and D22 firebox. Might be able to hear some whistling there. That's coming from some fitting that's not quite tight enough. Can't see which one it is. And already starting to hear that sound that a tea kettle makes before it actually starts boiling. That low rumble. No pressure indicated yet. First couple firings on these boilers, they tend to expand a bit and things will more or less fall into place without much, if any, adjustment. So we'll just see how it goes. Still no pressure indicated, but there is obviously some sort of pressure in there. The whistling's coming from someplace. Alright, we are off the pin now on our pressure gauge. Right, we have an actual leak somewhere. I can't quite feel where that is. I think it's actually from around the pressure gauge. I don't know, everything is mighty hot. Let's see. The whistle is kind of leaky. Let's see how that goes. Half a bar indicated. A little bit of smoke coming from around the boiler casing. There's 10 psi. All right. Just gonna crack our throttle, send steam toward that turbine and see what it does. There we go. So that's preheating things now. That's cool. See if we can get any sort of revs out of it. This should sound pretty cool. I don't know how loud it's going to be, so just be mindful of your ears. We're spinning. Alright, this is barely revving out at all, but we have got ourselves a spinning turbine. Let's see. Yeah, those bearings are good. It spools down. It takes a little while to spool down. Let's see what we've got. Oops. Well, that's quite the thing. Can I feel any heat conducting through that counter shaft? No, not really. The gear teeth themselves, no. The turbine housing's probably, actually it's not that hot. I think probably because it's plastic, it doesn't conduct heat very well. That's interesting. That's really interesting. It sounds like nothing else. Our condensed water catch is right here. And just as I suspected, that water is clean, meaning that there was no oil inside the turbine. That's cool. And I've still got 1.6.5 bar indicated. The whistle is leaky. Not much I could really do about that, I think. Yeah, it doesn't quite seat. But, that's actually kind of cool. Let's see. The shaft on the turbine from this direction rotates counterclockwise, as you would expect from how the steam is being admitted through the pipe. That's just a really interesting sound, and there is extremely little vibration, as you would expect. Like we caught a dead spot there in the vanes. Yeah, full open and it's not spinning. I guess there are dead spots that may be had. Give it a little nudge. That's quite interesting. Quite interesting indeed. The fire is just about out. We've got 0.6 bar indicated. So that's our first run, first firing on this thing. The whistle is a bit leaky, it would appear, but otherwise it looks like things are functioning as they should. Very encouraging results thus far. I want to show some of the vanes inside the firebox. You can see these structures that are coming down from the bottom of the boiler. Those are those vanes. They're basically just the same as the vanes you would see on a heatsink in a computer, but the purpose is to be a heatsink in the other direction. We're trying to conduct that heat up into the boiler, and you can see them also from the top of the boiler casing here. It's a little bit difficult to tell because the lighting's not the best anymore, but they extend down from the bottom of the boiler into the fire. Apparently it builds steam a little bit more quickly. Thought it was a marketing gimmick, but no, it's apparently real. And after our first run, pressure is back at 0. I'm showing nothing that appears to be out of place. I don't see anything worrisome anywhere. Boiler looks fine. No charring or soot or anything. Smoke box is entirely cool, basically, just a little bit of radiant heat from the firebox, and obviously the chimney's non-functional as we suspected. Did not run the generator, but everything else looks like it is in good condition, and we should be ready for another run presently. All right, so we're ready to relight. We've refilled the boiler ever so slightly, and we have engaged the drive belt on our dynamo now, so we'll see how it runs on a slight load. All right. There's nothing to re-oil, which is interesting. Feels a little wrong, but that is what it is. We emptied our condensed water catch as well, which it was clean. Could probably use that as boiler water again. Already hearing the precursors to boiling. I don't know, those fins at the bottom of the boiler might actually be up to something. Slightly inconclusive at this point, but I get the theory. Increase the surface area. You can theoretically increase the rate at which heat is transferred into the boiler. And we're off the pin. I tried to tighten down the whistle a little bit more. We'll see if we have any results. But I think it's actually the seat in the poppet valve inside the whistle itself that might be the issue. But showing about 2 psi indicated at the moment. Pressure's building a bit slowly, but again, we don't have totally hot water in there quite yet. Not hearing any whistling or sputtering from the boiler this time. Again, these things, they shift around a little bit, literally, on their first couple of firings, and they find a happy medium. Has been my experience thus far, anyway. So, about half a bar indicated. And when we open the regulator, it's probably going to flash boil at this point. So we'll open up our throttle. There we go. Pressure dropping a bit. And we're starting to boil, visibly. And there's steam. Alright, let's open it up and see what it does. Hit a dead spot apparently. Apparently dead spots exist, and it might be a little harder to start it with the load applied. Not that there's really much of a load, but more of a load than there was with nothing. Let's see. Not yet, about 10 psi indicated. Give it a jog. There we go. That is turning the motor shaft. Comes down a bit more quickly, as you would expect, with the drag from the belt. Came to a stop, about 27 psi indicated. There's a lot of drag. There is a lot of drag from that belt. And it's harder to overcome that initial inertia, apparently. It really is quite interesting. Actually, I'm noticing, you probably can't see it, but I'm noticing that there's a little bit of a reflection of the fire underneath the turbine cradle, so I can kind of keep tabs on the fire indirectly. That's kind of cool. Of course, at present, just this initial shakedown run, I have no way to tell how much power we're actually generating, but gotta believe it would be, I don't know. I actually have no idea what the capacity of this generator is, so I'm not even gonna try to estimate. But maybe it would be enough DC voltage to charge a cell phone. I really don't know. Perhaps. I actually am seeing a little bit of smoke coming out of the chimney right now. I think it's probably finishing oils and some of the paint just cooking off a little bit as the fire has excited itself a little. But that's now gone away. So, cool stuff I must say. Take the drive belt off. You can hear how much longer it takes to spool down without the drag from the belt. So yeah, the bearings are really good. I'm quite impressed with that. And of course it's got that turbine sound, which is unique. Definitely very unique. You almost want to call out V1 rotate. But yeah, put away on this is going to be basically identical to the D20, D22 with the exception of you don't have to flood anything with oil because there's no piston. Looks like there's no oil in the turbine at all because the condensed water coming out of it is clean. And I think that's basically about it. Just going to be to drain the boiler and then put it away. So yeah, this is the initial unboxing, assembly, and shakedown of a Wilesco T115 steam turbine. And I will do another video on this a little bit more in depth on the principles of turbine engines, steam turbines in particular, obviously, some of the applications of them, still quite relevant today. And just a little bit more behind the scenes in terms of just listening to the thing run and working out little quirks. But for the moment, that's what I've got for this introductory video on the T115 by Wilesco. So until next time, F-Man saying thank you very much for watching, and of course, we will see you soon.